Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Margaret Corleone Blues, and if you asked me what my top 5 favorite movies of all time were, I would easily say The Godfather, The Blues Brothers, I'm sure as you can tell from my username, the OG Star Wars trilogy, Dog Day Afternoon, and a little known movie from 1975 called Jaws. Now, I've loved Jaws for as long as I can remember. It was one of the first movies I remember loving as a kid. My dad looked exactly like Roy Scheider when he was younger, and I remember seeing pictures of Roy Scheider before I even saw the movie when I was like 2 or something, and I would point to the pictures of him and say, "It's Daddy, it's Daddy," and my family would have to be like, "No, that's not Daddy." So yeah, I'm like a lifelong Jaws fan, and recently I finally decided to read the book Jaws by Peter Benchley, which is of course what the movie was based on, and it was definitely a very interesting experience, so I wanted to make a video on it. So we're going to talk about the head, the tail, the whole damn thing of Jaws, the book. I'm going to talk a little about what happens in the book and then kind of break down, the differences, and then why I personally feel like Jaws is one of the big exceptions of the movie was better. Also, this is my shark, and his name is Wild Bill Kelso, of course after John Belushi's character in Spielberg's 1941. Also, I just want to say, don't hunt sharks. Sharks are your friends. Sharks are adorable. I love sharks. Do not hurt them. Yes, Quint is like the coolest character ever, but don't emulate him and hunt sharks. Please do not. Okay. So we start out with a young hippie girl named Chrissy deciding to go for a swim, and she's just chilling, she's swimming, she's vibing, and then all of a sudden she feels like she hit her foot on a rock or something, and no, she reaches down and there's no more foot, and she can feel like the blood and the guts all coming out of her leg. So Chrissy's boyfriend wakes up at the place they're staying, and he's like, "Where's Chrissy?" And he goes and he finds her clothes, but he can't find her. So he immediately calls the police and he gets in touch with Henriksen. He's like, "I think my girlfriend drowned. What do I do?" And he's like, "Well, she's like a hippie, so are you sure she's not streaking?" He's like, "No, I think she drowned or something happened." So then he goes and he calls Chief Martin Brody. Chief Brody and his wife Ellen are just sleeping in their bed. It's very early in the morning. So we find out about them and also a little bit about Amity itself. Amity is a little town in between the Hamptons and Montauk in Long Island. The town's a little bit of a dump. It's not like this cute little trendy beach town. The economy is going in the toilet. It sucks there. A lot of people are miserable, but the summer people like coming there, all the rich people like coming there. There's a little bit of class tension between the locals of Amity and then the tourists. They're by the Hamptons, so they have all the super rich Ina Garten and Jeffrey Garden type people coming to stay there, but everybody who lives in Amity is like super poor. And Chief Brody, Martin Brody, he grew up in Amity. Ellen is from, she's an uptown girl who was living in her uptown world, and she never had a Backstreet Guy, and her mama never told her why. There's a little bit of tension between her and Brody because they both kind of resent each other from their backgrounds. So then he gets a call from Hendrix, and he's like, "Dude, this girl drowned, blah blah blah." So Marty's like, "Let's go out, let's go see what's going on." So they investigate the area, talk about it, if she's a streaker, blah blah blah. They keep wanting to talk about her being a streaker because they want to see some naked hippie chicks, and they come across her body, and it's all mangled up. They see a shoulder, they see part of her head, and he was eating good, Mr. Shark. He was eating good. He was really enjoying that meal, and they all start throwing up. So they're just all vomiting everywhere, and Brody's like, "Okay, we need to close the beaches." Brody goes to his journalist friend Harry Meadows, who is going to get the news about the sharks out while they try to close the beaches. And Brody eats egg salad sandwich and milk to calm his stomach, which that's probably the last thing I'd want to eat after vomiting, but you do you, Chief Brody. And so they're all trying to get the news report out about the shark and get the beaches closed, all that, and then here comes Larry Vaughn to ruin everything. And he's like, "Nope, I got these business partners, and I can't piss them off because we're all going to be screwed in this town if we piss them off." And they're like, "What business partners?" And he won't tell them, but we're going to find that out later, so keep that in mind. So they don't close the beaches right away. So it's like late June, so the beaches aren't super busy, but there's still a few people around, and there is a little boy named Alex Kinter and his mother, and they are hanging out on the beach together, and Alex really wants to go swimming, but his mother keeps telling him, "No, it's too cold," because, it's June, it's not warm enough. She doesn't think it's warm enough. But then there's a dad playing on the beach with his kids, and Alex's father recently passed. He's one dead parent short of being Bruce Wayne. And she just feels guilty because Alex doesn't have a dad to go swimming with him, and she can't. So she's like, okay, you can go in, but you have to go in your raft. So he does. Poor little Alex. He's floating. He lays down, and he just starts floating. I think he's like one of the only people in the water. And he floats super far out. He's not really paying attention because he has his eyes closed, and he's like way past the shore. And he realizes it, and he's like, oh my god, I have to get back to my mom or she's gonna kill me. And he gets somebody's attention, and that being the shark. And yeah, the shark gets to him, and we find out that the last thought that he had was he thought he got hit in the stomach, and he gets eaten. So then Chief Brody finds out that Alex got eaten, and in the meantime Hendrix calls him and says that he saw an old man get eaten by the shark. And they're like, oh crap, we screwed everybody over, we screwed these people over. And the mayor wants to cover it up again, but they can't. There happened to be 2 news reporters from New York City that were on the beach, and they all saw this happen. So there's no hiding this anymore, Mr. Mayor. Sorry. So then they do decide to close the beaches because it's going to be bad press for them if they don't. The police department hires a local fisherman named Ben Gardner to kill the shark, and he goes out on his boat, and all of a sudden they're looking out on the boat with the binoculars, and they don't see him. He's nowhere. They're like, where did he go? So Brody and Hendrix go out on a boat to look for him. He's completely gone. He's just like vanished into thin air. Like he was raptured basically by the shark. And so they call his wife and they're like, yeah, he got by the shark, sorry. Fast forward, we go out to a fishing boat in the sea, and we see the best character of Jaws, finally, Quint. Somebody tells him, hey, did you hear about that shark in Amity? And he's like, we'll find each other one day, but I'm not gonna go looking for him right now, but I will. And I'm like, heck yeah. So they're like, what do we do? So enter Matt Hooper, and him and Brody hate each other like from the get-go. Matt is from like the rich part of Long Island, and he's taller than Brody, so he automatically does not like him. He's like, I hate this guy, and he's here to ruin everything. And Matt's kind of a little bit of a arrogant little jerkish know-it-all, so they very much clash. So then the shark incidents are kind of put on the back burner for now because now Matt's in town and he's just flipping everything upside down because he meets Ellen Brody, and they knew each other several years ago. Ellen used to date Matt's older brother, and Matt was kind of fixated on her because she used to call him Matthew because she wanted to treat him like an adult, and he like always remembered her, and he was like always obsessed with her, and while his brother was dating her, and like all throughout his life, because she called him Matthew instead of Matt and treated him like an adult when he was a child, I guess. And Ellen's all excited about this because she can get back to her up-down girl ways via Matt, so she invites him over for dinner. Matt comes over and they have wine and drinks with Martin, and a bunch of people come over. They have a big dinner party, and Brody does not have a good time. He's really uncomfortable, and Ellen's just super pissed at him, and she's like, you ruined my outing with Matt, blah blah blah. So he hates Matt, like, and Brody just has this whole lot of hate and resentment towards the people of Ellen and Matt's type of upbringing. Like, he is just so angry about the rich people of the Hamptons because he grew up on Amity and he feels like they're ruining his life, blah blah blah. And at this point I was like, Brody, are you sure you don't want everybody in the town to get eaten by the shark? Because it kind of seems like you do. I'm not really believing that you want to save the town from the shark, but whatever. So he hates Matt. He thinks Matt's trying to get with his wife, so he just hates all the rich people. So Ellen is all, oh my god, Matt Hooper, oh, Matt Hooper, Richard Dreyfuss. So Ellen goes and invites him out for dinner, and she is planning on getting her some Matt Hooper action. And she goes all out. She showers, and then she sprays perfume everywhere, spraying perfume on her coochie, and that is a very easy way to get a UTI. Let me just tell you that. Do not spray perfume there. They go out to lunch, and they're just, chatting, and they talk about the old days when they were uptown girls and uptown boys, and things start to get a little heated, and they start talking about their fantasies. And Matt tells her about how he always wanted to like do like some group stuff. And then Ellen Brody talks about her fantasies about getting assaulted, because I don't want to get banned off of YouTube, because yeah, YouTube does not like words like that. So yeah, she has fantasies that I'm trying to phrase this in a way that won't get me potentially demonetized whenever I get monetized. She fantasizes about things that Olivia Benson investigates on Law and Order SVU. If you get my drift, that's her fantasy, is about like a worker coming to the house and doing that with her. So then they go to a motel, and we don't really get the details until we get the fast forward to Ellen Brody when she gets home, and she like thinks about how angry Matt looked when he was like having an orgasm, and like he was like anger banging her because he resented his brother, and this was like his way to get back at his brother because he didn't treat him like a adult. There's a lot. All these people need therapy, like Brodies and Hoopers, and yeah, you all need therapy because you all have some issues, some deep resentment issues, all of you. So yeah, the resentment's a big thing in this book. But yeah, so Brody's a little suspicious, and all he does, he's so obsessed over the fact that he thinks that Matt is banging his wife. He's like determined to find out about what's going on with Matt and his wife, and he's like, I'm gonna kill Matt, blah blah blah. And then finally we get back to the shark because it's going to be 4th of July soon, and the beaches want to be open so that people can have a wonderful time. So we have a town meeting. They're talking about reopening the beaches for 4th of July, and things are really tense. And people are like, Matt, you're not doing your job because you were at that motel. And Brody's like, bitch, what? And he's like, yeah. He pretty much takes that as confirmation. So he's like, he hears about the motel and he like snaps. And anyway, the mayor's like, guys, my business partners, like, we're gonna be screwed. Everyone's gonna be screwed. I'm gonna be screwed. We're all gonna die. Everyone's gonna die if my business partners do not have the beaches open. And Brody's just like, who are these business partners? But then he gets a contact from Harry Meadows, the journalist, his journalist friend in Amity, and he's like, guess what? Vaughn is working with the mafia, and they're making him offers he can't refuse to start this real estate business, and part of the real estate business is selling property in Amity Island, or Amity is just Amity in the book, because it's not an island, it's in, like, near where Ina Garten lives, I guess. So yeah, the mafia is involved with this real estate business with Vaughn. So he's in this business with this guy named Tino Russo, who is one of the upper echelons of the 5 families of New York, you know, established by Charlie Luciano. So he's like, oh my god. So Brody's like, oh my god, Vaughn's working with the mob. That makes sense, but also it's kind of dumb because he wants to sell real estate in Amity, but Amity's economy is like in the toilet already, and it's already a dump. So like, why would he put all his life, like, you know, he doesn't want to end up with a horse's head in his bed. So why is he selling real estate in Amity? So he's like, the beach is better open. And Brody goes back to his house, and there's a mob guy murdering his son's cat. Yeah, and he's like, you better keep the beaches open, and then he drives away. It's like mysterious. It's like Alan Neary just kind of shows up and is like, hey, don't close the beaches. Like, come on, Michael Corleone has better things to worry about than this Brody. So the cat got a little horse's head treatment from the mob guy because Brody doesn't want to open up the beaches, but then he's like, okay, let's open up the beaches, but then we're gonna like monitor them, and if anything happens, then we're gonna close them again. And in the meantime, all these tourists are coming to Amity because they want to see this giant shark, and like, it's actually doing good for the economy because people are like camping out on the beaches waiting to get a glimpse of the shark. So Matt and Brody, they are, you know, watching the beaches. They have binoculars, and they're like, okay, let's see if something happens. And then this little kid almost gets eaten by a shark, but then he doesn't, which I'm like, you kind of held back on the shark attacks a little bit there, Mr. Benchley. But anyway, the kid almost gets got, but then he doesn't. So then they close the beaches anyway, because they're like, another kid could actually get got, so we don't want to deal with this. And they're like, hey, there's this badass mofo in Amity named Quint, the best character in Jaws in both the book and the movie, and they're like, yeah, he can hunt the shark. So they hire him to hunt the shark. Quint, they close the beaches, they go on the boat with Quint, and it's completely miserable. They're all fighting, they hate each other, everybody hates each other, everybody wants to kill each other, and Quint is using like these blue fins for bait, and he has like a dolphin fetus that he's using for bait, and Matt's like having hissy fit about all this, and everybody is just miserable. Everybody is just fighting and fighting and fighting, and then he keeps making little sassy comments to Brody about the fact that he may have gotten with his wife. And then Brody, Matt, he doesn't actually kill him, but he almost does. He starts strangling him. He's like, I'm gonna find out if you banged my wife. But then the day is over and they go home. They don't sit out on the boat and sing "Show Me the Way to Go Home." They actually go home. And then second day, and they finally see the shark, but they don't really get near him. But they estimate that he's 20 feet long. So that's like 4 of me. And then he weighs like 5,000 pounds. So that's not even 4 of me wouldn't even weigh 1,000 pounds. So that is a big boy. Give me a big boy. As they said on SNL, as a big shark. And Matt's like a fangirl, and he's like, oh my god, that's like the biggest shark I've ever seen. I just love sharks so much. Oh my god. We fast forward to the Brody house, and Ellen's just kind of stressed about, you know, Martin and Matt and stuff being out there. And Larry Vaughn shows up, and he's like drunk. He's like lost a lot of weight. He's just like clearly not doing well. And he's like, I'm leaving town. And I'm kind of like, is the mafia paying him? Or is he like just running away from his problems? And he tells Ellen, he's like, hey, I wish in another universe we could have been together. And then she's like, being like a rich wife would kind of suck, even though I just like, you know, went behind my husband's back and was like hooking up with this guy because he was rich. But I don't really want that life. I like being poor in Amity with my husband. So I'm happy with my life now. And he just goes off, and he's a coward. He just leaves Amity with his wife, and that's the last we hear of Mayor Vaughn. The third day, they are out at sea, and Matt wants to bring his diving cage at the time. They're like, no, and there's this big argument. Everybody just hates each other in this book. That's what you need to know if you read it. That everybody hates each other so freaking much. Just like, I just want everyone to shut up. So then he finally brings it. So Matt tells Brody that he was hooking up with this like local young Amity woman at the motel and not his wife. And he's like, I'm gonna call her after we get off the boat today, and I'm gonna ask her. But he doesn't have to, because Matt puts his tank in the water, his diving cage in the water, and he's down there, and he's like trying to get pictures of the shark, and then he's trying to kill it too. And he's just kind of like fanboying over the shark, and the shark gnaws through the cage, and then he gets Matt, and he rises up out of the water, and he has just like Matt in his mouth. It's kind of gives you that imagery of like Audrey too, and he's just like staring at Brody and Quint with Matt just like mangled in his mouth, and they're like, oh crap. Matt dies, unlike in the movie. So Matt gets got, and then this is kind of a turning point for Brody and Quint, and Brody's like, oh, I shouldn't have tried to kill him the other day if I knew he was just gonna die today. Not really. He feels guilty, and then he goes home to his wife, and he tells her that Matt's dead, and they kind of embrace and hug each other, and they kind of feel this new appreciation for each other. And then Quint is like pissed, and he's like, I don't care if you pay me anymore. Yeah, because Amity's like dirt poor, so they're like, we can't pay Quint anymore to hunt for any more days to hunt the shark. And then Quint's like, I'm gonna kill the shark anyway. I don't care about the money anymore. I'm gonna get this bitch. And then the next day they go out, and they are out for revenge, and they see the shark again, and Brody just kind of has this intense guilt over Chrissy and Alex and Matt and everybody else, all the other victims' death, and he's like, I'm gonna get you, Sharky boy. And they start harpooning the shark, and it gets some injuries, but nothing really major. but it damages the ship, and then the ship starts to sink. And Quint is tied to the boat, and he can't untie himself, I guess, and he drowns. And then the ship is sinking and sinking and sinking more. And Brody's like, oh my god, I'm gonna get eaten. The shark's swimming towards him. And he's like, this is it, I'm gonna die. And then the shark just kind of dies from the injuries. I guess it just bleeds out. The shark just dies, and he swims back to shore. And that is the Jaws book. So as you can see, there's definitely a lot of book versus movie differences. And I think the things that were most the same were Chrissy's death and Alex's death. And I think the things that were the most different were obviously the relationships between the characters were very different than in the movie, like how Brody and Matt pretty much become instant BFFs and want to hunt down the shark together. They hate each other, they want to kill each other, and Brody and Ellen, they kind of have a very normal marriage in the movie, and they have a pretty healthy life balance with their kids. And they're both miserable. Everybody's just miserable. Everybody's miserable. And the whole mafia plot line was put in the book but then in the movie, of course, he is just greedy. It's just a politician greed. We have the extra victim along with Alex, and then we have people. Alex was besides Matt, Alex was the last one to die between Alex and then the end of the movie. We have the guy in the pond. We got Pipit. That's the best part of the movie. That's the best part of the book, is that Pipit does not get eaten. Pipit was a local Martha's Vineyard dog, and they had him in the movie because he was the star. I think in general, Jaws the book and Jaws the movie are both kind of about human relationships, but they go about it in different ways. I think ultimately, that's the biggest difference between the book and the movie. And the book, about human relationships, it's with Marty, and I keep calling him Marty because I keep thinking about Martin Scorsese. I'm always thinking about Martin Scorsese. Jaws the book is about non-trusting, about trust issues, and kind of infidelity, and just tensions, class tensions, that kind of thing, and just not trusting each other. Whereas the movie, I think it's more about building bonds with people that you might not agree with, and just working together for like the greater good. Because I think of Matt and Brody immediately become like BFFs in the book because they're trying to kill this shark, trying to get this shark together. Jaws of the book is more about like negative human connection, whereas I think the movie kind of took it and made it about positive human connection. Like, and then you go to the boat scenes in the book and the movie, and in the boat scenes in the book, everybody hates each other and everybody wants to kill each other. I mean, Martin almost literally strangles Matt to death, and that's the human connection there. But then in the movie you have Matt and Quint, who don't necessarily get along at first, but then they ended up building this bond with each other with Quint's stories about the USS Annapolis, Indiana. I meant Indianapolis. I'm from Maryland. Don't come for me. Sorry, Annapolis. You get that bonding moment. You just have them. It's about, all about friendship, and Brody and Ellen have like a pretty normal marriage for a 70s movie. So I think that's ultimately, for me, the biggest difference is the way that human connection and relationships are portrayed in the movie versus the book. Now, in general, all of my thoughts just kind of summed up. My favorite scenes in the book were definitely Chrissy's death and Matt's death. I actually want to read part of Chrissy's death because I think that he wrote it really well. And that's another thing that I really liked about the book, is that we see the shark's POV, and which I think kind of, the movie had its issues with the shark not working, and then ended up working because we didn't kind of got the shark POV, but it worked also because we kind of get that in the book. So I want to read some of Chrissy's death, because who doesn't like blood and guts? Alright, so this is when she reaches down and realizes she don't have a foot no more. At first, the woman thought she had snagged her leg on a rock or a piece of floating wood. There was no initial pain, only one violent tug on her right leg. She reached down to touch her foot, treading water with her left leg to keep her head up, feeling in the blackness with her hand. She could not find her foot. She reached higher on her leg, and then she was overcome by a rush of nausea and dizziness. Her groping fingers had found a nub of bone and tattered flesh. She knew that the warm pulsing flow over her fingers in the chill water was her own blood. Pain and panic struck together. The woman threw her head back and screamed a guttural cry of terror. The fish had moved away. It swallowed the woman's limb without chewing. Bones and meat passed down the massive gullet in a single spasm. Now the fish turned again, homing on the stream of blood flushing from the woman's femoral artery. A beacon as clear and true as a lighthouse on a cloudless night. I love that. That is so great. This time, the fish attacked from below. It hurtled up under the woman's jaws agape. The great conical head structure struck her like a locomotive, knocking her up out of the water. The jaws snapped shut around her torso, crushing bones and flesh and organs into jelly. The fish, with the woman's body in its mouth, smashed down in the water with the thunderous splash, spewing foam and blood and phosphorescence in a gaudy shower. Below the surface, the fish shook its head from side to side, its serrated triangular teeth sawing through what little sinew still resisted. The corpse fell apart. The fish swallowed, then turned to continue feeding. Its brain still registered the signals of nearby prey. The water was laced with blood and shreds of flesh, and the fish could not sort signal from substance. It cut back and forth through the dissipating cloud of blood, opening and closing its mouth, seeking for a random morsel. So yeah, I really enjoyed how he wrote the attacks, and we get Mr. Sharky's opinions. Let's interview him. Did you enjoy eating, Chrissy? Yeah, he did. I really do think that this was entertaining. It felt like a really, all the parts with, Brody and his wife and Matt, all, the love triangle stuff, it really just felt like some, trashy soap opera, and I'm like, it wasn't, good, but it was entertaining. And I was really shocked when Matt died, because I just assumed he was gonna live because of the movie. But I also really enjoyed his death scene. I thought it was just so creepy, the way that the shark rose out of the water and just had him in his mouth, and he was just staring down Brody and Quint, mocking them, watch out, because y'all are next, and everybody in Amity's next, and I'm gonna get you. But let me tell you what I didn't like, because there's a bit of that there. This book just felt like a lot of stuff happened, but there was not really a lot of conclusions to that happening, if that makes sense. For example, Ellen and Matt's affair. Now, this was a huge part of the book, and it was a huge part of Brody and Matt's relationship and how they were interacting on the Orca together. But the conclusion of it was that Matt just kind of dies. Even though I liked his death, he just dies, and then Ellen's like, oh, I guess I'll appreciate my husband now, because I thought about what it would be like to marry to Larry Vaughn, and I didn't like it. And that's really how it's resolved, and that just didn't feel like enough to me. I felt like there needed to be some sort of conversation, or Brody just has a lot of anger issues, and I feel like he's just not gonna let it go. The mafia plot was okay. If you know me, I mean, I love mafia-based media, but it was just kind of there. The movie just has Larry Vaughn just doing all this and not wanting to close the beaches because he's worried about, not getting money for 4th of July, which could ruin the town. Amity in the book was already a dump, so they didn't really need another reason to be worried about the economy. Could have just been like, oh, we're about to all go bankrupt and the town's about to go bankrupt. Amity's already a dump, so why would he put all his investments and put his life on the line with the mafia to sell real estate there if nobody wanted to buy stuff there anyway, because the town was already a dump? It doesn't make sense, Larry Vaughn. I don't know. I think he's just an idiot, and then it just felt like a cop-out at the end, be like, hey, I'm leaving town, you're an idiot. everybody in this book's just really dumb. That's what I gotta say. Everybody just has issues. Everybody needs therapy. There just needs to be, are there any therapists on Amity? Because you all need therapy. And he just kind of leaves, and that's just the conclusion with the Mafia plotline. Like, we don't find out, like, I mean, just being a fan of mob movies, I'm like, I kind of felt like, oh, maybe he was getting whacked, or maybe he was, you know, going to witness protection, something like that, when he was leaving town, but that was never really explained. He just kind of leaves, and that's just kind of the conclusion. Like, there was not strong conclusions to important plot lines. Peter Benchley, okay? I felt like all of this stuff happened, and then there was really no meaning at the end. Like, Brody, like, the whole book, I felt like, was focused around Brody and worried about his wife's infidelity, and then it just kind of ends with just because he feels guilty because Matt died. Like, oh, I feel bad about Matt's death, and I feel bad that I didn't appreciate my life with Brody enough, so we're just gonna ignore the fact that she was banging Hooper and nobody really cared. And that's just kind of, I mean, that's just not really, I don't know, it just was like, what, you're not gonna even have a conversation? They just hug and they kiss, and we're supposed to think that their marriage is okay? Like, come on. That was kind of BS. And then, yeah, the mafia kills the cat, and then they're gone, and then Larry Vaughn's gone. Like, come on. You could have had the mafia, like, watch the sharks, because Charlie Luciano, he had control of the waters in New York City during World War II, and he actually used to, the government, the U.S. military actually hired him to help watch the beaches, or like his people. I mean, I'm just imagining like Charlie Luciano just standing there with like his goggles, like Brody. I don't know. The mafia just plotline, like they just kill a cat and then that's it. That's all we hear about the mafia. Like, it just didn't really end up having an effect because they were killing the cat so that Chief Brody would close the beaches. But then all this, it didn't really matter in the end. That's what bothers me about all these plot lines, is that they don't really matter. They just happen, and then there's not really a conclusion to them. And then another thing, a lot of Jaws fans talk about how Ben Gardner's death in the movie is the one part that they don't like, or there's not really a satisfying conclusion of, and I think that's kind of Mr. Peter Benchley's writing sneaking in. We do get a more conclusive answer in the book because we see his corpse. Matt finds his corpse, but there's nothing. He just is not on the boat, and then he calls his wife and he's like, oh, your husband got eaten by a shark, and there's no proof anywhere. I felt like that's a little irresponsible of the police to say somebody's dead when they don't have a body or have looked for a body. I mean, what if he like just swam to shore for a snack? I mean, he probably didn't, but that just didn't make sense to me. And I think that's the one scene in the movie where Peter Benchley's kind of poor, oh, this just happened, so yeah, let's move on, kind of sneaks into the movie. In general, the characters were really unlikable. Brody was so miserable. He hated everyone. See, I'm going to compare it to the movie versus the book. Brody in the movie he's just doing his job, but then we see glimpses of how he genuinely cares about his family and how he cares about the people of Amity, and Roy Scheider's so great in this role. With his physical acting, of how you can just see the tension and fear on his face when Alex dies, and the guilt, we truly see all of that. But I felt like in the book he just didn't really seem to care. Like, there were lines like, oh, Brody feels guilty. Well, I don't really see him show don't tell. They just say he's like, oh, he's guilty. He feels guilty that Alex Kinder got eaten by a shark. But there's not really any moments where I'm like, oh yeah, Chief Brody definitely felt guilty. I just didn't see that anywhere. I remember Steven Spielberg said that by the time he finished reading the book, he wanted the shark to eat everyone, and that's exactly how I felt. There was never a time where I feel like in the beginning of the book was fine, and Brody was just kind of doing his job, and then the more the book goes on, we kind of just see his hate and resentment towards the people of Amity, and I'm just like, I don't believe, and I know he's doing his job, but I just didn't really believe that he genuinely cared about saving the people of Amity, because based on his attitude, I would have thought he wanted everyone to get eaten. And he was just very unlikable. I like a good anti-hero. I like a good grumpy, morally gray jerk-ish character. But when he's supposed to be like the protagonist in saving Amity Island, I don't really believe it. I don't believe that he cared about Amity. And then Matt in the movie is just like very intelligent. He knows he's smarter than the people of Amity, and he is shown that he is. He's shown that he's very knowledgeable. He knows all about sharks, and you know, I mean, in general, he's just likable. But ultimately, in the movie, he's just kind of a know-it-all-y brat, and just seems really arrogant, and he's just not likable. I don't like him. He's kind of just like a spoiled brat. That's how I would describe Matt Hooper. He's basically a spoiled brat. And I really didn't care about him in the book. I mean, his death scene was great, but I almost felt like I was rooting for the shark in that moment. Is that bad? He's just kind of a bratty little rich privileged boy in the book, and who just kind of has inferiority complex. And so does Brody. He kind of has inferiority complex too. But in the movie, he's just very intelligent, and he knows that everybody in Amity's being an absolute dumbass, and that he knows better than everybody, and I think his intelligence is showed, and it's justified. That's the thing about this book, is that people's actions happen, and things happen, but nothing was really justified. Oh, and then Quint. I mean, Quint is my favorite character in both the book and the movie, but in the book, he's just kind of a cool fisherman, and then he just kind of dies, and they kind of, they do the whole Moby Dick thing, Captain Ahab drowning in the boat with the shark and him wanting revenge on the shark, but the movie amps it up so much more, and really, like I said, it doesn't really justify people's actions in the book as well as the movie. It has the USS Indianapolis story, where it's just like, oh, this is why Quint's the way he is. He has this whole lifelong vendetta against the fear of sharks, and just his death in the movie was just so poetic, because this was his entire life was just leading up to this face-off with this shark. And in the movie, he's just kind of a cool fisherman, and he wants to kill a shark because he doesn't like the shark. And his death was just kind of lame. He just kind of dies. That's just another thing that kind of happens. Quint just kind of drowns, and it was kind of like, it just seemed pointless to kill him. And I think they were, I mean, the movie, you can definitely make the whole Captain Ahab and the whale, Moby Dick comparison with Quint and the shark, but in the book tried to do it a little bit, but it would just like, it didn't pull it off as well. It just, I mean, he was a shark hunter, so he was doing it for money, and then once it killed Matt, he was suddenly like, I'm gonna get the shark no matter what. So it was kind of there, but just not enough. It was not enough to really justify his death, and making him drown was just lame, and I think he was trying to copy Moby Dick with that, but it just did not work as well, because there was really no need for him to die. It was just kind of happened, and it was just kind of lame. And then, but then, yeah, like in the movie, Quint has the whole backstory with the USS Indianapolis, and he's just like the like absolute legend. And then finally, in general, the book was just kind of anticlimactic. Chrissy's death, Alex's death, and Matt's death were exciting, but then the rest of the attacks either were off screen or were almost attacks. Like the part where they just really go in for the shark and we're like, okay, we have to go with Quinn and we have to go on the orca, all that stuff. It wasn't even like an attack. It was just, he almost attacked somebody, and it just felt really like a big letdown. Like there really needed, this just goes back to what I said about justification. I mean, it almost attacked the shark, but I think when you have all that tension, and they have to really be at the point where they're like, okay, we gotta take out the shark. It just was lame. It was just really lame to me that they were just like, oh no, it just almost killed somebody. The shark just kind of attacked, so I guess we have to go get it. It was just really kind of a letdown, and I think that Peter Benchley was really good at writing the attack scenes. Like, I read part of Chrissy's death, and I think him having better description and all that stuff would have just been so much better. A lot of this book was pretty anticlimactic. Hooper and Ellen would probably disagree it was anticlimactic, but the ending was just like, oh, the shark's dead. I mean, he just looks up and the shark's dead, and that's it. There's no smile, you son of a bitch. It's just the shark's dead because the harpoons and the ship, and then he's just kind of dead. And it was just all of that stuff that just should have been more exciting or had more build up to it. It was really a letdown, and that really disappointed me. Big epic lead up, there was this giant shark, and everybody's after the shark, and Quint doesn't even want to get paid anymore because he wants to kill the shark, and the shark is so, like, it's almost human in the way that it rises up and just stares him down with after eating Matt, and it just kind of dies. I'm just like, really? That's lame. Like, that is so lame that the shark just dies. And yeah, then he just swims back, and it's like, okay, that's the end. I think, in summary, things happen, but there wasn't a lot of good conclusions to them, and there wasn't a lot of justification for character actions, all that stuff. And in general, I really hated every character in the book there except Quint. Everybody's really stupid, and everybody just hates each other, and everybody is in severe need of extreme therapy, because they all got issues that are, like, the shark would have been doing them a favor by eating them. That's what I gotta say. Oh, another thing I wanted to bring up is just the tension of them being out at sea the entire time in the movie was just so good, because anything could have happened anytime. There was a lot more at stake, and then also, like I talked about, the human connection in the movie as opposed to the book, the bonding between them during that moment was just kind of makes the movie for me, and hearing their stories and stuff like that is probably one of the best parts of the book. And them just getting to go home after a day of hunting sharks was just kind of, that was another anticlimactic thing, like them being in the boat in the middle of the night and then feeling that Bruce hitting the boat is just like my favorite part of the movie. And then just them going home safely, it just took out a lot of tension. Everything is just, in the movie, everything is perfect. The movie is truly perfect, with the character and their characterizations and the pacing and the way that the attacks are shown, and the death of the sharks, Bruce's death at the end, and Quint's death, the way they changed Quint's death, and then, you know, just everything, and then actually having the characters be likable. It's definitely, like, one of the exceptions where the movie is definitely way, way, way better than the book. If you're a big fan of Jaws, I think it's worth reading at least once. Anyway, that was it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, please like and comment and subscribe and share if you would like. I'm almost at 100 subs. Let's get there, people. Let's go. And I hope you have a great day, and let me know who your favorite Jaws character is and your favorite Jaws moment, and if you've read the book, what you think of it. So I hope you guys have a great day, and of course, well, Jake and I say bye.